Welcome back. Today I want to talk about Ascension brackets because NA is looking really good and really competitive for the Ascension bracket. I think there's a tournament predicted for early January or maybe mid-January for their first Ascension bracket. Right now we're in the offseason, so there's some teams starting to play. And I'm not going to lie, I'm really excited because there's some really good shooters out there. Let's start talking about Shopify Rebellion. This is probably the best team from North America that didn't make it into franchising. Shopify, if you don't remember, was used to be LG. Crazy guys. B-Dog, Mata, Moose, Dazzle. They ended up switching out Tig for Vic. So that's the only change these guys made. But overall, these guys have had the pedigree of being at the top. These guys have been super competitive, but often fall just short. And it's unfortunate to see them kind of lose in the clutch. Like they lost 0-2 in the last chance qualifier, even though they were projected as one of the higher seeds. I think it's going to be interesting to see how these kind of work because I think they are going in as the favorites because they have had that pedigree. They've beaten the top teams before, even before franchising, and they have players that are just getting better. B-Dog and Mata proved it as two top 20 players in North America at the end of last year. So I think them going in as for more or less the same roster is going to be really big for them because Ascension is going to be marred with a lot of up and down. It's not in a league anymore. It's going to be based on how you perform day to day, not just, over the whole league. Shopify actually played in the Knights freeze-out offseason tournament, which saw a few contenders up in there. TSM was in there. Oxygen was in there. They ended up beating everybody in the tournament, placing first, beating TSM and Oxygen and Nearest Airport. So there's some good teams that they did beat. Ooh, and Silk Road, actually. I'm pretty sure that's Built by Gamers Academy. Yeah, love those guys. So I think this roster, especially keeping that same core, is going to be good going into the tournament. Maybe Vic will give them that last little push to be a stronger front runner for the team. Although I will say that some of the other teams we're going to talk about today are just so good. Next up on the list is TSM, because TSM, goddamn, they made another great move in the offseason, but it's all going to come down to how they can actually perform in the clutch, because TSM has had great rosters time and time and time again, but have never been able to prove it, right? This time now they have Hazed back in action. They still have GMD and Seven and Corey as well, but they added in Nature. If you don't know, back in the day, I used to love TSM and Gen G, actually. So I love seeing this roster of GMD and Nature from Gen G. Probably two of the best players to play for that team. GMD, one of the best smokers in North America. He may not have the accolades for it because of their lack of success as a team, but as an individual player, he is so good and plays really well within a team. As well as Nature is an insanely smart IGL Sentinel who plays Sentinel Duelist as well. So that's going to give him a lot of options for this team. And I don't even think he's playing IGL right now. I think he's probably going to be second in command. Hayes is probably going to be the IGL, who is, again, another very well-versed and experienced IGL, both in CSGO and in Valorant so far. So this is a well-experienced roster. I think Seven and Core are going to add that offensive punch, I think, and definitely add that ceiling raiser, while GMD, Nature, Hayes, really good bottom floor. Bottom floor raisers, I should say. But it's all going to come down to how well they gel together and if they can actually find the success. TSM is deep into trying to do well, and even though they lost all that FTX money from FTX being a sham, which I think is really funny, they're kind of banking it all on making it to franchising. I'm surprised they didn't make it in the first round, probably because of this FTX deal is probably part of the reason why. But I think they have a genuine shot and are probably within the top 3 to 5 range for actually making it. At the end of the day, this is why Ascension is so good, because only one team can make it. They also played at the Knights Freeze-Out event, placing second, losing only to Shopify Rebellion, who again is the front runner. I didn't really expect them to beat it on the first round, but I think this team is going to be one of my teams to watch, not only because I have two of my favorite players, including the French-Canadian. This team is just so solid all the way around. I'm super excited to see how they're going to do. Then we have the Guard. I don't have as much to say about the Guard, but I think it's really interesting because this is another roster that has the potential for being really, really good. As we kind of saw before, their players and their coach gelled so well together, especially at the beginning of the year, being that first seed and crushing everybody. They did, unfortunately, lose their main duelist and Saya player, and they did lose their coach MCE. So this is going to be a big shakeup for this roster. However, they do still have good talent on it. Trent, one of the best initiators in North America, honestly rivaling it for the best. Had an absolute breakout year last year. Best rookie of the year, easy. Their coaching staff and who they're replacing for the duo is going to be the two biggest questions for this roster because they have seen success before. I think it kind of mirrors that of Shopify Rebellion, where Shopify has a really good team with a consistent team, but hasn't seen the top-level success versus the Guard having that really top-level success, but struggles with consistency. So I think they are going to be two alternative paths. I think in this format of not league-based, but more so individual tournament-based, the guard might have a slight edge if they can kind of pick their way back up. I can't underestimate how important a good coach is, so they're going to need to replace him with someone good. Hopefully Valen, Jonah P, and Ned are still on the roster. They haven't announced the full roster or if they're even a full team still, so we're going to see about that. But the guards on the team I'm excited for, and I think they could do it this year. Next, another crazy team to come out of nowhere who I'm so excited for because I have some of my favorite players, some of my favorite coaching staff, some of the best ideology in the game, and that's G2. Okay, not ideology. I don't remember what the guy did, the main guy, Carlos. We don't like that ideology. But what we do like is Shazam, Dapper, Whippy, Oxy, and Penny with Emmy as the coach. So if you don't know, Shazam, Dapper coming from Sentinel's roster, Whippy and Penny coming from V1, and Oxy as this sort of free agent. He's been around the Tier 2 community for a while, getting his shot with a Tier 1 team. Emmy as well coming from V1. And if you don't remember, I actually made a video with this a while ago. V1 is such a smart roster, and how they were constructed and how they were playing is really was all about high percentage odds. And I think if that can carry over to this G2 team, especially with some of the pedigree of players that they have, this could be an amazing roster. Unfortunately, they don't have Zelsis or Xander, who are two key players for this, but Penny is by far one of the best duelists in North America for non-traditional reasons. The way he plays duelists, and he said this in an interview, is that he's very, very selfless in the way he plays. He's not about getting big frags. He'd rather sit and wait. Not a lot of Jets are able to kind of reel in that ego, especially as a duelist player, kind of, your main goal is to get the kills, but he gets them in very patient ways, a very patient player, very supportive player, and so even when he's not playing at his best, he's playing this very strong support role. However, when he does play his best, he is crazy. He can go out and get frags and be the number one player on this team. Whippy as well is a very solid player. I think most of the roster is that sort of solid players, right? Shazam, Dapper, Whippy are all very, very floor-raising teams. Hopefully Oxy can fill that role. I haven't seen too much about him. I know that he is good. He's been at the top of the ladder for a number of times, but it's going to come down to how he can kind of fit into this professional play mold. G2 probably has the most tragic history with franchising, basically making it in, but then at the last second were forced out because of scandals during their organization. If this roster can get their bearings, this could be a top 3 to 5 roster. Potentially even taking it over everybody else, because I think they have one of the most solid rosters, and if they can just do that consistently, I think they can prove to be a really good team. The final roster I want to talk about, who I don't even know if they're fully in Ascension or not, is Faze Clan. Because as we saw at the end of last year, Faze Clan is still a dominant team, especially with Baby Bay and Dicey really kind of creating this sort of heliocentric offense in Valorant, being just two duelists roaming around getting kills. They would be plus 20, 22, 25 in matches, and it's all about how well they were playing. This is such a good team. They haven't really announced who else is still on the roster, but I think with the wide range of talent and the number of super solid players still kind of roaming around, this could be a crazy team to play with. I'm really glad Dicey kind of broke out last year, because he was doing some stuff that I feel like he didn't really get to do on 100 Thieves when he was playing back in the day. After taking some time off, came back to Faze. So good. They lost in the losers finals, I believe. So this is technically could be a top 3 team coming out of last year, but this is a very streaky team, which could either really hinder them or really help them in this Ascension style bracket. Keep your eye out for Faze Clan and their announcements of who they're picking up, because this is gonna be a good roster. The last team I want to focus on is actually a new team, the M80. I don't know if it's the M80 or just M80, but this is kind of taking a few players from different areas, taking the remainder of Ghost Gaming, adding in EU from NRG, and adding Xander from V1. Now, again, if you saw my V1 video, you know how much of a big a fan I am of Xander. That guy is insanely consistent, a really good shot. Is probably one of the best site lockdowners in North America. So consistent, able to play with in and out smokes, insanely patient, which I think is really necessary, and is a very smart guy. He was playing IGL for them. I'm not sure if it's going to be him or John QT playing IGL this time around, but they have a really strong roster around them now. So Xander, again, probably one of the best players on the team, but also adding alongside another breakout star in Nismo from last year. Nismo was doing really good stuff on the Jet last year for Ghost Gaming, getting them into the closed groups, which I think was really good for them. Alongside having really solid players, Koala Noob, EU, John QT. This team, it's going to give them some time to kind of break in, but I think with the passion that they're kind of putting behind this team, there's a lot of assets going into them. They're putting a big push, a big emphasis on making it to franchising. And I think with a passion like that from the support staff and from this team, I think, again, they're another strong contender. So there are at least 6 teams that could potentially make it to the top level of North America Ascension. This just shows how deep North America is as a region and how well they're all going to be. Honestly, I'm more excited for Ascension than I am for the actual franchising because it's almost higher stakes. You know, franchising, sure, if you lose, you got next year, you got next split or whatever. If you lose Ascension, then you have to wait a full another year before you can make it to franchising. Franchising is the big goal for all these guys, and I think there's a lot of teams that can make that push. There's even more teams that can make upsets on these teams. We didn't even talk about Oxygen. We didn't talk about Silk Road. We didn't talk about so many of these other teams that even have top-end players without an organization backing them. We still have Mr. Beast wanting to invest in a team. We still have Disguised Toast wanting to invest in a team. We could see, I don't know, Moist investing in a team. I think there's a lot of teams that have a chance but need the backing. And if they get that, it's going to be crazy.